Just here to tell you a bit about the importance of data centers, their relevance for the market, and why you should essentially put your land up for lease for data centers. So, just to start off, what is a data center? Data centers are facilities that store, process, and assemble data. Think of it as a large building that has many supercomputers in it. And all of them are storing data relevant to the internet, relevant to the cloud, relevant to AI, right? There are a lot of different types of data centers, but the most common and the most popular three are enterprise, hyperscale, and co-location data centers. Um, an enterprise data center is essentially a data center that is owned by the development company that wants to store their own data. These range from around 100 to 200 acres, and they store around 40 megawatts of power. Um, these data centers would be around over a year, they would have at least the power equivalent to 20,000 houses. And think of a hyperscale data as an enterprise data. So, in principle, it's owned by the company that wants to store their own data, but on a much larger scale. So, these hyperscale data centers are around 400 plus acres and they store north of 200 megawatts of power. And if you want to put that equivalent there, that's more than 50,000 houses of power a year. Um, these hyperscale data centers are known to be campuses. So a lot of times they will span over multiple parcels of land and they'll have multiple facilities. So for example, a data center campus can have offices, can have recreational facilities, and they have their major main data center buildings, right? The most popular type of data center is a co-location data center. These, think of this as an apartment complex for data centers. So it's one developer that makes the data center, but they lease out the space to other companies that want to store their data. And very briefly, like this can happen in one of two ways. Either the developer can provide you with the computer itself, or you as an external company can come in and bring your own computer too. But these are mostly like in urban areas, they are buildings that have multiple stories, and think of it just like racks and bunch of computers like within the same building, right? So these are smaller than 90 acres and they can range from about 400 to 600 megawatts. It is rare that it is anything above 500 megawatts, but that's the general sort of co-location situation in the market right now. So let's see why these are important. So relevance
Hold on,
for property owners. Yeah,
Mehrbano, before you move on from that, I think people uh, should understand some of those data points you were tossing out there. The
hmm
amount of power, the megawatts that these locations are consuming. These are enormous consumers of energy. I heard you say that
absolutely.
the enterprise, an enterprise level data center would consume roughly the amount of power that 20,000 homes would consume in a year. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So for those of you that this might be a new general topic, obviously something's going to go off in your heads like, holy cow, that is an enormous amount of power. And yes, it absolutely is a lot of power. Um, that's going to be something that we talk about the relevance to this to your property. You have to, for developers of these types of locations, you have to be able to access power and large amounts of power. Mehrbano is going to walk you through some examples here further on in the presentation of where certain pieces of property, um, historically very low value property, all of a sudden became extraordinarily high value, not because it was a beautiful place to put a new house or it was a nice place to go and put a log cabin and take pictures, but because it fit a criteria of some very, very specific site selection variables. The majority of that is how much power is available. So Mehrbano is going to take you through that, but again, she's getting into the relevance for property owners, and that's why some of the ears are going up from new property owners that um, a lot of these variables you need to be aware of, and you need to understand the implications on your property.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to echo what you said, Craig, a lot of our presentation is focusing on like what makes a good parcel of land for a data center, but majority of that is the power. Because data centers need to be running 24/7 and they're going to be holding a lot of power. And I'll come to the fact that hyperscale data centers are gaining a lot of traction in the market lately, but large campuses like 50,000 houses worth of power north of that even, that's a lot of power, and that's really important.